Well, thank you for coming. What we're going to do is I'm just going to kind of do my best to describe what this trip will be like, and then have a time for questions. As I said, when we go to questions, I'm going to have Kent join us via telephone, and then I'll also repeat the questions you asked for those who are unable to be here for the audio recording. So the first is, and this is responding to a lot of the questions we receive each time we do this, is first, why do we call it a pilgrimage? And one of the things that I know, because I've been to Israel now 4 times, this will be my 5th trip there, is that there's a lot of ways to travel to Israel and Palestine. There's everything from humanitarian efforts, which is an important part of what's going on there currently with the Israeli-Palestinian crisis. I'm going to encourage you, if you have, you may have an opinion about what's happening between Israel and Palestine and Israel globally and everything else, and there's a saying that you'll hear when you're there. If you spend a week in Israel, you'll want to write a book about it. If you spend a month in Israel, you'll want to write an article about it. If you spend a year in Israel, you're not going to say anything about it. It's incredibly complex, and we will get into that a little bit. But that's one of the reasons people go. People also go on sightseeing tours, which the first time I went, which is what we did, which means you travel around on a really, really nice bus. You stay in really, really nice hotels, and they pull you up as close as they can to the gate, and you get out, and you look at stuff, you take some pictures, hear a few fun facts, jump back on the bus to your next spot. Another one reason people go is a very educational bent, which I also went on one of those trips, which means you are just being obliterated by information nonstop, and by about day 2.5, you can't take in any more information, but you realize there's something powerful about it. A pilgrimage is a little bit of a combination of all of those things. Our hope is that we would open ourselves up to something bigger and something deeper than ourselves on this trip. We could see more in the days that we're on the ground there. We could definitely do more, but we purposely offer time to reflect. You'll have some time in solitude. You'll have some time together. We offer times to share. There's a lot of discussion, probably even more discussion than there is teaching. And it's an invitation to look within ourselves and also to look at our world. And our hope is that we will all together have an experience that transcends words, that you'll have a hard time describing it when you come back. For those of you who've talked to those who went on the first trip, you'll hear things like, it was incredible, it was awesome, it was great, but they still in some ways struggle to exactly talk about what's happening. One of the guys who went on the first trip, his name is Dave, he talked about how it was an incredible restart of his faith journey. I think it was the second day we were there. We went up on a hillside by the Sea of Galilee, near where Jesus probably did what's called the Sermon on the Mount, and everyone spread out by themselves, and we gave everyone 45 minutes to read aloud to themselves the Sermon on the Mount, just Matthew 5 through 7, in the place where it happened. And Dave talked about, like, he just sat on a rock and wept and wept and wept, like something deeply powerful happens there. Another person spoke of how she felt more connected to who Jesus is and who Jesus was, the historical Jesus. Because when you read about Jesus using images, and then you see the image that he was pointing to, and something unlocks in you when you realize this all actually happened in a real place. I actually just had a talk with a friend this morning who's doing digs, the first digs ever, at the Roman encampments around Masada, which we'll go to. And some of the things they're finding there. And they're still finding things, still learning things about what's happening. And so for us, what we want is that you would come back and say, this has been a restart. There's something happening here that I can't quite explain. That it's a time to get to know yourself, to know God more, and to get to know one another more. So with that said, that's why we call it a pilgrimage, is it's a lot of reflecting along with all the other things. So what you can expect from us before we leave, you will get a suggested reading list. And for those of you who immediately say, I'm not really a reader, we'll kind of list them for you. And so some of it is more intensive reading, some of it's a little bit lighter reading. Here's why reading is really good. If you have kind of a baseline understanding of biblical geography, of some of the biblical history, of some of the history of Israel, some of the places, it's really, really helpful when you get there to go in with a little bit of understanding. So like Masada, for example, is not a biblical site, but Masada is integral to the history of the nation of Israel. So if you have a little bit of understanding about what Masada is, When we go there, and Boaz, who will be our guide, does the teaching up there, and I promise you'll cry. It's super, super helpful. When you go, for example, to the northern part of Galilee and you realize, oh, this is where the Pharisaic movement started. And so Jesus was probably a Pharisee, which many of us haven't heard. Things like that are really helpful to know where you are in the country and what it represented in biblical times. So we will offer a suggested reading list. The other thing we'll do is we will meet a few times before we ever go. So that way when you're showing up to the airport, you'll recognize people in the group. And if you're seated next to somebody on the flight who doesn't take Ambien, you'll be able to chat with them. I'm an Ambien taker, so just count me out between here and wherever our first leg goes to. But that way we'll get to know one another, and we'll also prepare a little bit educationally for what the trip is going to be like. Because again, the more you know, the more room you leave for really this pilgrimage mindset versus just having to try to drink everything in. So we will head to Israel on March 13. That's when our flight will leave from Denver. One detail that you probably should write down, because it's a bit tricky. If your passport is within 6 months of expiring on March 13, you will not be able to, they will not let you into Israel. So if your passport expires anytime between March, what would it be? What's 6 months after March? November? October, somewhere in there? September. Okay, if it expires September 13 or before, you need a new passport. They will not let you in. Israel does not mess around, and you will figure that out. Like when you go to the airport to leave and they get on the bus with massive machine guns, you realize, oh, they're serious here. It's not like they're not TSA agents, so I'll say it that way. So make sure your passport, if you're going, is renewed and not expiring within 6 months of this trip. 6 months at the end of the trip, too. So it has to be after September 22nd. That's incredibly important. When we land in Israel, we begin right away. So last time we went, we got in late at night, had a quick bite to eat, went to bed. We don't wake up super early, depending on what time your waking schedule is, but we do wake up somewhere around between 7 and 8. We have breakfast, and we head out immediately to a site. And each site is a little bit different. When you're in Jerusalem, you're walking around in the city. When you're in Galilee, when you're in the desert, you're walking around on paths and rocks in the midst of dust and everything else. We do hike a considerable amount. And I know several of you have already asked, is that going to be a big deal? Because I said 3 to 5 miles a day, which is true. So 2 things to know. I went with a fellow who had a cane. This was, 7, 8 years ago. And he made it. So he walked around the whole time with a cane, and he did it. On our last trip, if you know Heidi Berkey, who's long been a part of Denver Community Church, she fell and hurt her ankle. And one of the doctors said, I think it might be broken. And she's like, no, I'm going to do it. It was like halfway through her trip. And she got back after walking 3 to 5 miles a day. She got back and finally went to the doctors, and she had a broken fibula. So she walked on a broken fibula with walking sticks. And I'm like, you are the toughest person I've ever met. And we had a woman join us last time who's visually impaired. So her daughter, actually, it turned out where everyone would take turns walking with her because you had to explain everything you were seeing, which actually brought a depth and a presence to the trip that was incredible. And she walked 3 to 5 miles a day. So for those of you who are questioning whether or not you can do this, know that we don't get out and walk 5 miles at a time. You'll walk maybe a mile and a half, and then you'll get back in the bus. There are alternative hikes. So if you want to keep going, you can walk as much as 12 to 13 miles in a day. That's pretty rare. I think we have one day that we hit somewhere between 11 and 13 miles. So if you want to do all of the hikes, I would encourage you, if you're not in shape or you're not walking, even if you're, I would get out and start walking a little bit. If you're new to hiking and you want to buy brand new shoes for Israel, please do not have them be brand new when you get there because you'll have blisters and that'll make your time miserable. Break them in. And walk a lot before. Just know this, that anytime we stop for teaching, that hike to the place where there's going to be a time of teaching and discussion and reflection is doable by everybody. So it's not like we're going to hike somewhere and you won't be able to join us. Every hike that we do is doable. Even if we're going to hike to a place that's difficult to get to, people that don't want to do it, they drive around and we'll meet you at the top or whatever it is. So all of those are doable. At the end of each day, we return to the hotel before dinner. One of the things we're going to start doing new this year is we're going to, on the way to the hotel, tell you about all the sites we'll visit the next day. And if you have reading material, you'll be able to review that, so it'll be fresh in your mind. We have dinner together, and then after dinner, there's a time to debrief the day or just hang out. So a couple years ago, Kent and I every day would say, hey, we're going to be in the lobby at 7:45, and we'll wait there till 8 p.m., and we're going to go 3 blocks down and grab a beer, or we're going to go drink coffee, or whatever it is. So there's always that time to come together and spend time with one another. It is a very manageable schedule, even with jet lag. You will feel tired, but there's plenty of time to sleep. Some people, first couple days last year, as soon as we got back to the hotel, ate dinner and went right to bed to catch up on sleep. But it's a very doable schedule, and I would encourage you to keep that in mind, that even if you think you might not be able to do it, you probably will. Where we will go. So Israel is the size of New Jersey. We're familiar with New Jersey, which means it's very small. You can drive from the north to the south in half a day. And so it's not difficult to cover the whole country, but you will notice that the terrain in Israel is unbelievably different. So when you're in South Israel, which is the desert compared to the Mediterranean, you're in two entirely different universes. But we will be in all of the major areas of Israel. We'll be on the Shephelah, which is the coastal plain. So if you've heard of cities like Caesarea Maritima, as it was called, that's out on the Mediterranean coast. A lot of where the Philistines lived is down on the Shephelah. And so you'll get a grasp of that. Last trip we didn't spend much time there, but we will be in the Shephelah. It's the coastal plain between the Judean mountains and the Sea of Galilee, the Mediterranean Sea. We'll be up in the Galilee region, which, if you're familiar with your geography, is north. Most people are shocked when they see the Sea of Galilee because they realize, this is like a lake. I think it's 5 miles by 8 miles, something like that. And so you can see across it, and you begin to wonder, how were there waves on this thing and all that jazz? But we'll be up there, and we'll go actually all the way north to the Syrian border, and we'll be driving right along the Lebanese border. And so we'll be up in that area. We'll also be in the desert, which is southern Israel. So we'll go to Qumran, where they discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls. We'll stay on the Dead Sea. Actually, I have a great story. If you come and you go to the Dead Sea, just say, I need to know about the hairy Russian guy who helped you at the Dead Sea. See, I'm already baiting you to come on the trip. So we'll also go to Masada, which I mentioned earlier, and then we'll be up in the Judean hills or the mountains, and that's Jerusalem and Bethlehem. And parts of Palestine. So we'll be there. That's located centrally in the mountains. Several of you have already asked, what sites are we going to visit? And that is to be determined. Some of that actually happens on the fly, but we will visit. There will be certain places that we will go. You will no doubt have heard of a place called Capernaum, which is kind of Jesus' center of operations during his ministry, where a lot of his disciples were from. We'll also go to less known places like Beit Sha'an, Susita, which are Roman settlements. And so we'll go kind of all over the place. We will have an Israeli guide with us. That is Israeli law, that you have to travel with an Israeli guide. His name is Boaz, and he is awesome. This will be my 3rd trip with him, and you will fall in love with him immediately. And just know, he will also keep us moving. So he's super, super endearing, and you will love him, and don't cross him. Say it that way. I've seen a couple people cross him, but they deserved to get his wrath. So, several of you have also asked too, is it safe? And yes, it is safe. Keep in mind that if you're a Western news correspondent who's assigned to Jerusalem, you're getting paid by the story. And so you have to create stories for the Western world to chew on. Now, has there been violence there? Absolutely. Has there been seasons where it's been dangerous? Absolutely. But we do keep track of and follow the State Department's travel advisories, and if there is a serious travel advisory, we would postpone the trip. We're not going to put you in danger. We're not interested in putting ourselves in danger. But anywhere we go is very, very safe. And we just want you to know that we're not going to risk something for pilgrimage's sake. And so with that said, the details. So the price includes airfare from Denver to Tel Aviv. Several of you have already asked about air miles. And yes, you can use air miles to get yourself over to Israel. You'll coordinate that with the travel agent and with Kent. You have to be there before us, which there were some people there that got there like a few hours before us. Others, like last trip, traveled to Jordan first and then came over to Tel Aviv and met us there. But you can use your own air miles. You cannot, however, use your own hotel points, mostly because in places like Galilee and in Dead Sea, there's not the hotels that you would have points at anyway. And in Jerusalem, to navigate traffic would be nuts. So the price includes airfare, all transportation while in Israel, all hotel accommodations, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, entrance fees to all historical sites, bottled water, and then tips for Boaz, who is our guide, and whoever our driver will be. So it is all-inclusive. What it does not cover is things like when we were in Beit She'an last time, it was like 99 degrees, and everyone got an ice cream bar. That's on your own. Going out after dinner, as I talked about, that's on your own. Postcards, trinkets, whatever, that's all on your own. So 3 meals, all the water you can drink, which you'll want to drink a lot of because it won't be as hot in March, but it'll still be warm, especially in the desert. And all transportation is covered while we're there. The price is, as I announced, $3,900. This is an expensive time of year to go because we're in Lent. Easter is really late this year, so there'll be a lot of pilgrims, especially in Jerusalem when we do the Via Dolorosa, the Way of the Cross. You're like packed in. And it's actually really fun because you get to see the way all these different Christians observe the cross. That is the price, by the way, for a shared double room. So if you're traveling as a couple, absolutely, we'll make sure you're in a room together. If you are traveling single and you say, well, I don't feel like paying an extra $500 for a single room, we'll assign you with somebody. Last time we traveled, there was a bit of, some people had to be separated, not that they were fighting. And so we will make accommodations for all of that. But just know it's $3,900. A single room supplement is $500. And which puts the price up, if I'm doing my math right, to $4,400. So with that said, I'm calling Kent. Is there any questions that you have right out of the gate? Because I'm confident I did not cover everything between now and the email that I sent out to you.
From one point of accommodation to another.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
How long are you staying in one given place overnight?
How long are we staying? I'm going to do this real quick. I'm going to call Kent. It differs. So how long are we staying between accommodations? So each trip is a little bit different.
Hey.
Hey, you're live.
Sweet. Well, how's it going?
Good. You want to introduce yourself? I've talked about you for like 20 minutes.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm not sure how to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Kent. Hopefully some of you I've seen before. Yeah, why don't you tell me where you're at in the conversation?
We covered why a pilgrimage and not a sightseeing tour. Why do we call it that? Some of the details of what they can expect with reading lists, meetings before, passports. I probably should have texted this to you. What the hiking is like, how there's sometimes like you can go further or stay behind. Kind of the main areas we'll cover. So Shephelah, Galilee, desert, Jerusalem, that it is safe. Let me see here. And then price and details and double booking or single hotel room, shared room, stuff like that. So the first question that was asked was, how many times will we move locations as far as accommodations go?
Okay, we will move 3 times. So most likely, I'll have to see exactly what time we land. I have to look at the itinerary. I'm still finalizing the flights, but most likely 3 times. First set of hotels. By the way, can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, I have you amplified.
What?
I said I have you on a microphone, so we're good.
Oh, weird. Okay. So, yeah, Galilee is the first stop, and we're there for a couple days, 2 or 3 days. And then usually 2 nights on the Dead Sea, and then the rest of the time is in Jerusalem.
Perfect. Yes.
And maybe one other thing I might add that's just kind of how to think about the trip. The way I'm kind of organizing this one in my mind and also the itinerary is that we're essentially following the life of Jesus, from where he grew up, and then began his ministry, and then down in to the desert, and then up to Jerusalem. We're sort of following his kind of life, the pattern of his life according to the Gospels. So that's a way of thinking about this trip, although there is plenty of Old Testament stuff that gets thrown in from time to time. But that's our primary focus, if that helps.
Cool. Immunizations. Do we need any
Say it again?
immunizations? Do we need any immunizations?
No. I mean, my answer is no. You should check with your doctor if that's something you're concerned about. But there are no requirements that I'm aware of.
Any other questions? Yeah. Oh, yes.
Free time in the evening, like after dinner, would we be able to just walk around a little bit, or would you not recommend that, or should we pair up, or what?
Is there free time in the evening? Would I recommend it, or should you pair up? Yeah, like I said to you, last time when we were in the Dead Sea, for example, there was a lot of hanging out in the evening that people chose to do differently because there's a few little like mini resorts there. And then in Jerusalem, the same thing. There's definitely places that people will suggest, hey, stay in this area, stay in this neighborhood. It can get confusing, most particularly in Jerusalem. But Kent and Boaz will give you more info on the ground. Anything to say about that, Kent? Free time?
No, that's exactly right. I mean, we're back to the hotel about dinner time, and yeah, people are free to do what they want, hang out. I mean, it kind of depends on where the hotel is if they want to go exploring, but Jerusalem is a great place to walk around or take a taxi, and I can give people all kinds of places to go and have little mini evening adventures if they want, no problem.
Yeah. Last trip we did, we actually, a bunch of us like peeled off and went to dinner together. Kind of forgot about that until now. So yeah, there's places you can go. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of places to go. Yeah. I found out on that trip, by the way, that scotch is really expensive. So I'm just saying, now you know. Yes, Amber.
I have two questions. One, I have to sleep with a CPAP, so is there any way you can tell us what kind of like international plug thingy I'm going to need?
Yep.
I've never flown internationally.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have plugs on international flights? Because I suffer from anxiety, so when I can't breathe and I
Oh, yeah.
breathe, I might have to like have people hold me down.
Okay.
So
No.
do they have plugs on the plane?
Yes. So the first question is, what is the plug situation in Israel? You can actually very easily go to Amazon.com and put in like Israel electronic plug, and it'll show you exactly which one you need. As far as do they have it on board on flight, it just depends on the aircraft that we're on. So I don't want to guarantee to you, yes, yeah, absolutely, you can plug that in. But that's something that we can know before, because once the flight's scheduled, you can usually figure out what kind of aircraft you're on and then what they have on board for things like that.
And how much money do you think, like walking around money, should we bring?
How much walking around money? I think it depends on what you want to do. Do you have a suggestion, Ken, on how much walking around money people should have in addition to the all-inclusive price?
Oh, I'd say $30,000 in one would be sufficient. I usually think a couple hundred. I think a couple $100 would probably go a long way. I've been doing these trips for 16 years, and I've done them different ways, and worked with different companies along the way. And the way this is organized is it's all inclusive in terms of meals, entrance fees, and water. I'm sure Michael mentioned this. And that includes lunch, because a lot of trips they'll come in $100 or $200 cheaper. Well, mine are actually quite affordable anyway. But sometimes that's the way they're set up. But then you're shelling out everywhere you go. Every time you're thirsty, every time there's lunch, and you end up spending an extra $1,000 on meals, and I'm not exaggerating. So the only money you need is just fun money and souvenir money. So that's kind of up to you. They also take credit cards wherever you go, just about. But I think, having some cash on you is not a bad idea. You can also use the ATM and take out shekels if you wanted to do that. And Michael, did you mention anything about tips?
Yeah, that those are included.
Yeah. Let me add a little caveat to that. It is totally already included. That's another thing, because on a lot of trips like this, you have to give a tip to the driver and the guide every single day of the trip. And I think that's just tedious and annoying. So I just include it all. But sometimes at the end of the trip, if you want to throw in a little extra, like if they're doing a good job, I usually throw in a little extra because I've worked with friends of mine. But you don't have to do that. But that's another reason why you might want to have cash or get shekels out. Coffees, sometimes we'll take little breaks. Coffee, ice cream, little snacks. That might be worth having some cash on you. So that's what I would say.
Okay.
Yes.
Currency, American dollars, or do we need to put it into their?
Currency, well, you have credit cards, and then shekels is the currency over there. Do places take the American dollar over there, Kent?
Yeah, they'll take American dollars everywhere, or just about everywhere. They don't like traveler's checks. That's like something I've learned. But yeah, and you, by the way, get a very good exchange. You get whatever the actual exchange rate is if you use your credit card. It's probably not worth it taking cash over there and changing it into shekels. You'll lose some money.
Any other questions? Who's our air carrier? Do you know yet?
Who's the air carrier?
Yeah. Who are we flying?
I think Lufthansa. This time of year is a little bit expensive. I mean, now it's like almost there's no low season. Israel has been slammed with tourism for the last 3 years. They're having like a boom. Millions of people are coming every year now. So just finding flights, period, is a bit difficult. But yeah, I think it's going to be Lufthansa, although the travel agent that I work with on flights, she's looking into a couple of other carriers. And Michael probably mentioned this, but it's worth repeating. If you want to fly on your own, you have miles, or that's just something you want to do, book your own air, that is not a problem at all. People do it all the time. Maybe 25% of the people on all my trips make their own air arrangements now, no problem. It's just your responsibility for getting there on or before the time that the group lands. But you don't want to be late, because then it's a big hassle, because the bus waits at the airport for everyone to get off, and then once everybody's on the bus, away we go. So if you are landing before, no problem, or even if you came in a day before, you'd still have to get to the airport. Going back is not as big of an issue. There's, it depends on what time the flight leaves, but there's always a bus that takes everyone to the airport. And you can also get a taxi or shuttle from the final hotel to the airport if you're making your own arrangements. Easy.
Yep. And if you want to use any miles to give Kent and I first class, so we'll be fresh as your leaders, we are totally, sorry. No, oh, yeah.
If we use our own miles or get our own transportation over there, what then is the cost for the trip?
If they use their own miles, Kent, then what is the cost of the trip?
$3,050.
3,850.
No, $3,050 if it's just land.
Oh, there it is.
Basically $3,000 as opposed to $3,900. So it tells you about the cost of what I'm paying for the tickets. And by the way, let me just throw in a very kind of random detail, but it always comes up. You cannot, I book a group ticket that's actually called a humanitarian fare ticket, meaning we're going for humanitarian reasons, which is why we get a little bit of a group deal. That means, though, however, it's you can't use, even if you have a lot of miles on Lufthansa, for example, you can't use your miles for an upgrade. It's just a straight group ticket. They don't mess around with things. You're not like upgrading here or there. If you want an upgrade, you just have to tell me ahead of time, and I have to book that with the airline. So they're kind of rigid about a group ticket. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Brian, you had a question? Will we be able to go see the Jordan River? Yeah. Yes.
Of course. We will get in the river. Well, I won't force you, but totally.
Yeah, last time we did baptism in the Jordan River. So, yes.
By the way, let me throw in a kind of something I'm excited about. March is an awesome time of year to go to Israel, because usually the rainy season is over and things are beginning to bloom. The weather is really nice. Things are getting very green. And in terms of weather, there aren't as many extremes. It's just pretty much really pleasant and nice probably the whole time. It's not too hot, and it's not like unpredictable like it is in the winter.
Awesome. Don.
Yeah, does this include any trip insurance or medical evacuation?
Trip insurance and medical evacuation or emergency.
It does not, but you can purchase your own. The best company and the most affordable company is called Travel X, EX. I can put all this in an email, too, when you get more official stuff from me. There'll be a PDF that will have the registration form, a kind of welcome letter, what to expect, and itinerary and things like that. And usually there's some information about travel insurance, but you got to book it separately. It's really not that expensive if you want something like that. And I don't try to talk people into it or out of it. It's just kind of personal preference. I will say Israel is a pretty small country. It's not a third world country. There are advanced medical facilities anywhere you go, everywhere we go. It's also socialized medicine, so even if you didn't have insurance and something happened, it's really, my daughter fell and cut her head one year, and it cost like $30 to get stitches. So just to keep in mind, it's not, there's a backbone of advanced medical facilities. And also you get cell phone coverage everywhere we go in Israel. It's a very well-connected country. There's also wireless on the bus itself. So there's just a couple things to keep in mind.
Yep. Ryan, you had another question. If you got baptized here, can you get baptized in the Jordan River? Yes, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Double dipping, no problem.
Yeah, Amber. Well, what's the payment schedule, Kent?
Well, I think I have to look at it because I don't have I just sent you the document, by the way.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, November 1st, December 1st, 25% is what, you can always work with me, by the way. If you have financial constraints or you need some flexibility, all you have to do is put that to me in an email. But 25%, December 1st will hold your spot, and then I think 50% of the total would be due January 15th, and then the full amount February 15th.
Any other questions? Yes.
I never had the trouble with prescriptions before. I hope that's not an issue.
Oh, no, not at all. Traveling with prescriptions? No, you'll be fine. Yeah, you'll just have to figure out the schedule. Obviously, it'll be a little different. No. No. I've traveled with prescriptions because I brought Ambien and all sorts of different, not to Israel, but to different places around the globe, and you'll be fine as long as your name is on it. Yep. Any other questions? Going once? All right, thanks, dude.
Hey, yeah, no, thank you. I don't know how many people are there, but thank you for considering this and being interested in this. We would really love to see this happen, so recruit your friends. I'm telling you, this is a life-changing experience. It brings me a lot of joy to lead these trips, and also to do something with Michael is just super fun. and you will enjoy it. You'll learn a lot, I promise. You'll find things that are challenging. Plus, we'll just have a good time.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Oh,
appreciate
there's
it.
one more question before you hang up. Yes.
Yep.
Is there any reason why this trip will be canceled if there's too few of us that will go?
Is there any reason why this trip would be canceled if there's too few of us?
Well, yeah. I mean, the price is based on 25 people, which I think is doable.
We already have that, by the way.
Okay, then done. If you have over 20 people for sure going, it's going to happen. I can also, sometimes people will send me emails that are interested that aren't from Denver communities, or they might be from anywhere in the world, and I'll sometimes throw in a couple of additional people. But it sounds like you've got the interest, and let's just put the pedal down and go for it. I think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It'll be great.
Cool. All right, bro. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks a lot. See y'all.
Bye. All right, so real quick, I didn't say anything about Kent. Kent studied in Israel for 5 years. He studied biblical geography, which means that you could honestly point at a flower and Kent can riff for 45 minutes about the flower, where it is in the text, and why it matters. He and I have also been friends for 30 years. Some of you are like, when did you meet? When we were 12. And I adore Kent. I really do. And so it's super fun to do this together. My dad and his dad found out before his dad passed away that we were going to do this, and they were like, has anyone called the State Department and told them that you two are leading a trip together? But yeah, he's a world of knowledge. He really is. And so with that said, I know some of you are in a place, and some of you who might be listening through recording, where you were like a firm maybe. And so Kent is really flexible and does everything he can to accommodate people, but we will ask that if you are able, that you can give 25% as a down payment by December 1, as he just indicated, and stick on his payment plan. You will get his email address. By the way, I will not be on email until after Thanksgiving, so if you start emailing me and get the bounce back, don't panic. One of the first things I'm doing when I come back the Monday after Thanksgiving is going through all of these details. So you will get Kent's information, you'll get his contact info. So when it comes to travel, when it comes to all the accommodations, all of the details, Kent works pretty closely with a travel agent because this is one of the things that Kent does is these trips. And so I'll ask you to continue to contact him. If you have any trouble getting in touch with him, just know that's a possibility because he does travel a ton. Then you can email me, and I'll be the one to make sure that he responds quickly. And if you have any questions about formation and what we're doing and all the stuff that we will do before we go, that's where you can email me. So, yes. How do you pay? That's going to be in the email. And so you'll get a PDF. That's a form, so you fill out all your information, and then it has the payment plan. So you can pay by credit card. You can write him a check. It will not come through DCC. There's a lot of weird things where we can't, as a nonprofit, funnel money to someone else. Although Ozark taught me how to do that. That's your show. So, so all of that will be detailed out, and look for that email by, let me think here, what's the date? November 20th. You'll have that November 27, which is a Tuesday. And again, if you're listening or if you're here and you're a firm maybe, we're going to encourage you to jump that as quickly as possible. If, by the way, you have friends, like a lot of you said you're not from here. If you have friends in different places and you tell them, like, hey, I'm going, and they're like, no way, I want to go with you. Absolutely. The woman who I told you was visually impaired and her daughter are from Idaho. We had a dude join us from San Francisco. We had 8 people from Highlands Church, Denver, join with us. So once December 1 hits, we will broadcast this more fully to different churches around the country that we have relationship with, and so we may have people join us. I think there was like 20-some people from DCC and like 12 or 14 others who joined with us. So don't be afraid to invite friends. I know there's some people, like one woman email, I can't remember who it was, her mom's going to join us, I think from like South Carolina. So feel free to invite other people. Yes?
Is there a cap on, there too many people?
Yes, there is a cap. So we max out at 50. That's when we're done. And it's all...
2 buses if you go to 50?
No, 1 bus still. It's a 55-seater. Any other questions as we conclude? Yes?
So Kent and Boaz, are they part of any specific organization here?
Boaz has a company in Israel, and I'm blanking on the name of it right now. He started his own guide business, basically. Kent worked at Mars Hill Bible Church, which is famous because of Rob Bell. So Kent was the pastor after Rob. Kent resigned in, 4 years ago, something like that, 3 years ago. And now one of his main things that he does is lead trips to Israel, pilgrimages to Israel. He does retreats in the woods, which basically reintroducing people and integrating their faith in a rooted way so they can connect to themselves and God. And then he teaches at a place called C3. It's a spiritual community in Grand Haven, Michigan. So you can go to kentdobson.com and learn more about him and learn what the mysterious man looks like since you've only heard his voice. But any other questions? Yes? You'll get Kent's email from me. So Ken has been on all the emails. He's just been blind copied, so he's not barraged by people. But once people say they're in, then we'll send out the list again, and there'll be the sign-up list and all that stuff. Any other questions? Great. You're welcome. Yeah. All right. Let me pray, and then we'll do that. All merciful God, we thank you that there are places in this world that mean so much to us, so much to our faith, and that you have opened up ways for us to return to those places, to explore them, and in doing so, explore who you are, explore who we are, explore what this tradition is that we're a part of called Christianity. So as my friends make decisions as they put money toward this, I ask that you would guide them in their decision-making and also prepare their hearts as together we prepare to head out on this adventure. I ask that you would give all of us here a wonderful week, that you would turn our hearts toward gratitude as we consider all that you have given to us. We pray these things in your Son's name. Amen. Go in peace, my friends. Thank you.